Let's go. Yo. Get up, nah I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. And that's facts.
Welcome, Bulls fans. You're tuned into Bulls on Tracks, the ultimate Chicago Bulls podcast, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and XM. I'm your host with the most, Brandon Trackside, and today we've got a lineup that's ready to bring the fire. First, we've got PKIDD from Windy City Breeze Podcast, over 1,037 episodes of pure Chicago sports gold.
Appreciate
PKIDD, you're a legend. Oh, man, dude, it is always a pleasure with you, brother. PKIDD, you're a legend in the making, and we're hyped to have you, man, and we're hyped to have you.
Hey, man, like as always, it's a pleasure to be with you. Happy to be with the crew. I was absolutely ecstatic to have Will Perdue here, so I appreciate you.
Oh man, he is so. Hey, just wait, man. It is the chef's kiss. All right, so next up, Foul Mouth C from Chicago Clubhouse Podcast.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How y'all doing? How y'all doing tonight?
Oh, Foul Mouth C, man, your unfiltered takes like White Sox rebuild rant and electric and all that, man. We're stoked to feel your energy today, man. Then finally we've got Cameron Ashley, the new head coach at Griffith, man. After a 12-15 season, he's stepping into a big vision and bigger hustle. Cameron, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here.
But hold on, Bulls Nation. Our headliner today is a legend, Will Perdue, a four-time NBA champion. He locked down the paint with seven rebounds per game in the 91 finals and a suffocating 101.3 defensive rating. From the Bulls Dynasty to CHGO analyst, Will's bringing championship vibes. Let's get it. Will Perdue.
What's up, everybody? Looking forward to chopping it up a little bit. So let's see where we go with this thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Yes,
Oh, man, I'm so excited to have you. Last time we had you, it was just a blast from the past. We were up at Bridges Scoreboard a little over a year ago, man. We had a building full of people. They were excited. I was excited. Will, you are a Bulls icon, man. Drafted back in '88 after killing it at Vanderbilt with 18.6 points and 10 rebounds your senior year. What was it like joining MJ's dynasty, Will?
Well, I'm looking at my notes, but to answer your question, Brandon, listen, it came with a lot of pressure in the sense of living up to his expectations were higher than the expectations of what the team had. Now, that being said, I was very fortunate to be in a position to where, they made the trade for Bill Cartwright. Dave Corzine was already there. If you go back and look at the numbers, I didn't necessarily play a lot, but it gave me a chance to kind of learn a lot about the game from, two of the more prominent centers, two different styles of game with Dave Corzine and Bill Cartwright. So I did a lot of watching, a lot of DNP CDs that rookie year, but I think in the long run, it was very beneficial and really was just a testament to how good that team was already at that point, still trying to figure out how to get over the hump with the Detroit Pistons.
Before I pass it over to PKIDD, I love how just, you're just open about everything. And this is what's great about it all, because you are like just basically telling us from the very beginning where it all began and where it all ended. And that's what's great about everybody that's watching, all of the players, all the athletes. Like, there is no limit to what you can achieve. You know what I mean? And that's what I like at the very beginning of like your backstory. And PKIDD, I'm sure you're gonna pick it up, man. You've got great. I'm so excited, man. I'm so excited about everybody that's in the building right now, man.
Well, absolutely. Listen, Will, I have been born and raised in Chicago, so I've appreciated all you've contributed to the legacy that was been built here. Salute to you. And I actually absolutely love the transition you made into being an analyst. And if I'm being honest, I'm really excited about that aspect of your career, because now, you have such a wealth of knowledge that you can actually give to the game and things of that nature. So I know we know the story. You've said it 1,001 times. I actually want to go a little off script, if you don't mind. Nothing controversial, but you've been really big on the state of the Bulls and things of that nature. And with the championship experience you have now, and things of that nature, we got a quote that is going all over the internet. Coby Bryant talking about accidental basketball. And I believe a couple of months ago, you even spoke on this. You spoke on how the game of basketball is not structured. There's no real rhyme or reason to how things are working. When you look at the two teams that are in the championship now, what's different about these teams than the other ones? And are they playing accidental basketball? Is there a real structure there? What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, quite honestly, because regardless of, how you play in the regular season, the one thing that I've noticed is the physicality of this series, right? Mm-hmm. And if there's anything that reminds me of how basketball was played back in the 80s and 90s, it was there was that foul that they had to review in the last game. Richard Jefferson was talking about how he felt mm-hmm. that according to the standards and the wind-up, according to Richard mm-hmm. Jefferson, it had checked 2 of the 3 boxes, which mm-hmm. meant that it should have been a flagrant 1 where they got 2 shots and the ball. Mm-hmm. But then the officials came back and said it was not. It only met 1 of the criteria, a foul. There was no wind-up. They made a play on the ball. Standard foul, 2 shots, play on. So it was kind of interesting to hear the difference. And, they also brought in who's the official that ABC has in the booth?
Not Steve.
Steve Javie.
Steve Javie
officiated when I played, and Steve Javie even said, I don't think this meets the criteria for a flagrant 1, which I found interesting because I fully believe I've seen that play 100 times, probably mm-hmm. over the last 3 years, and I would say 98 out of 100, that was called a flagrant foul. So why is it not a flagrant foul in the playoffs, in the finals, when is there anybody on the panel today that, according to how the new rules are written, and when I say new rules, in the last 8 years, and the definition of a flagrant foul and, contact and everything, anybody on the panel that didn't think that was a flagrant foul?
No, I absolutely thought it was a flagrant. I thought they were going to call it flagrant. That was going to change the momentum of the game.
Right, because then not only does it get 2 free throws and possession, so it could possibly be a 5-point turnaround. Yep. Which technically, then if you talk about the basket that possibly Indiana, it could be as much as a 7 or 8 point turnaround, right? Mm-hmm. So I was a little surprised as you heard Richard Jefferson say, well, even after the ruling, Richard Jefferson said, listen, I still think, look, there's wind up in my opinion, there's a foul, but they didn't call it. So I found that to be an interesting aspect of how the physicality of a game increases. And the reason why I bring this up, and I know it's a long answer to your question, but I think, in my opinion, and I think it happened too late in Game 3, Chet struggles in late game situations. I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know if it's the physicality. I mean, he during that last 3-minute segment before they finally took him out and put Hartenstein in, he couldn't get the ball up over his head, couldn't get a rebound. You know, even the slightest bit of contact was knocking him off his base. Now, that's one of the things. Is he a really good player? Yeah, he's not great by any means yet. He's obviously got the skill set. So what do we talk about in playoff basketball? All of your weaknesses are exposed. No pun intended, but he's shown that he's got to get stronger, right? But that's where you talk about the success he had in the regular season, and in my opinion, how he struggled specifically in the finals and at times throughout the playoffs. He's been very inconsistent, and I think it's because of the physicality. So what my point is that Oklahoma City is, in my opinion, has a structure, okay? But I think what we need to do is really give Indiana more credit than they're getting from a defensive standpoint and their game plan, because of how they're playing both defensively and offensively, has taken Oklahoma City out of that structure that they've succeeded with all season. And I'll say, just in my opinion, in game 2, I thought that because of the pace at which Indiana was able to play at, even though Oklahoma City won that game, you take game 2, game 3, you look at the pace, right? In my opinion, that took Oklahoma City out of their comfort zone, right? They made them uncomfortable. And not only was Holmgren, I think, fatigued, I also thought Shea was fatigued. And I also thought that what they've done is they've created a situation where, in my opinion, Oklahoma City's gone too much isolation, too much one-on-one, not enough making the extra pass. And in my opinion, that should be credited to Rick Carlisle and his staff for, in my opinion, checking the box on who's had the better coaching, Oklahoma City or OKC. I also don't understand why OKC changed their starting lineup going into the finals.
Yeah.
Right? Because, listen, I understand the thinking behind that, but behind the scenes, when you've had so much success with a specific lineup and all of a sudden you get to the finals and then you change the starting lineup, it sends a signal of uncertainty to the players. And now the players are going, why are we changing the lineup? They only lost up to that point, maybe one game. I know they hadn't lost 2 in a row. And that affects the psyche of a player going into the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward. It's all about adjustments. But you basically can say that 2 teams, when we look on them on paper, Oklahoma City's the better team. But right now, Indiana's playing better as a team from top to bottom, right? And because of how they've been able to control the physicality, they've been able to take it to Oklahoma City, and they've made, as Phil Jackson used to always say, we're sticking to our bread and butter. We're going to force our opponent to adapt. We're not going to initially adapt to them. We're going to play a certain style to force them to adapt. And tip your cap to Rick Carlisle and his staff and those players, not just Halliburton. From top to bottom, you've seen guys step up. And they've continually forced Oklahoma City to adapt. So I'm excited to see what happens in the game tonight, to see how Oklahoma City comes out and plays. Because, listen, is it a must win? No, but it's about as close as you can get. I heard something on the radio today that team won game 3 have won a series 80% of the time.
81%. Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, listen, I love it. Thanks so much for that. I have a follow-up question specifically about coaching, because I've heard you talk about that as well, but I want to pass it to 5 Mouth C. I appreciate you giving me that long answer. Not long, insightful.
What's your follow-up? You gotta hit
well, you mentioned the main difference was coaching. So like the main difference being like Rick Carlisle versus the name of OKC's coaches just slipped my mind for a second. You've played with Phil, you've played with Pop. When it comes down to coaching, is this ultimately just Rick Carlisle putting them in a better situation and capitalizing off of that? And if you don't mind, how did you feel about the reports of the Knicks trying to get our boy Billy an interview over there? How did you feel about that?
Listen, let me go back to the Carlisle. I think because it's been a while. Remember, Carlisle won a championship with the Mavericks, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct with that.
Yeah. Championship coach.
But quite honestly, Dallas should not have beaten Miami.
Nope.
But again, it's just I've always had utmost respect for Rick Carlisle just because of his grasp of the game, but also him, and this is what Phil and Greg Popovich are really good at, is reading the team, developing professional relationships with the players, understanding how to get the best out of each individual player, how to handle those particular personalities and emotions, and then putting those pieces together, taking, what's been given to him and figuring out, it's kind of like Tetris, right? It's a puzzle, putting those pieces together to make the team at its best. There's no way in hell going into these playoffs did I ever think that Indiana would get this far. Now, I know how well they played the last third of the season. I get it. But at the end of the day, I still didn't think they were better than Boston. And, I thought for sure that the Knicks would beat them. But that just shows you what makes the playoffs so special is the ability of teams to do what you don't think they're going to do because they have the ability, and particularly Halliburton, to raise an individual's level of play and raise a team's level of play. You got to give Halliburton a lot of credit. I mean, he's taken a lot of heat, a lot of criticism for being, some people want to even claim that he's not really an all-star. I think now you totally disagree with that and say he's definitely an all-star, and he's on the cusp of being a great player. Meaning that, let's wait and see what happens. But what he's been able to do in these playoffs, I think now, he checked the box and we know how good he really is. And it's just it's a good matchup with a system and a coach. We always talk about Jimmy Butler. How did he get where he got to? Tom Thibodeau got him there. And then he took what he learned from Tom Thibodeau, and he's been able to, grow off of that. But that was a perfect matchup of player coach. Mm-hmm. Same thing, Brunson. Player, coach. Okay. Dallas let him go. We know about the tampering, big deal. But it was just talk about perfect relationship, perfect matchup, perfect system. So what does New York do? Who do they bring in? And how does that going to affect your best player in Jalen Brunson? And what type of system are you going to run to try to get the best out of him? So there's a lot to be seen. To me, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but it kind of reminds me of the Golden State Warriors a little bit, right? Mark Jackson got him to a certain level. Golden State surprises the hell out of everybody, fires him, brings in Steve Kerr. The rest is history. Yep. I don't think that New York is that good, but what they have shown is what they're willing to do is fire a successful coach, bring in somebody else. To me, though, that says that they have a feeling that they can possibly make some trades or improve their roster. So they, I think that, that it's just the tip of the iceberg of what they think they can do between now and October.
Hey, Will, I want to apologize to the rest of the guys because I knew that this was going to be something you had a lot of insight on. So I appreciate you breaking it down for me. But please, hey, Foulmouth, I know you got some questions for Will. Please jump in.
Thank you, kid.
Yeah. So Will, big fan, man. Love listening to you and your commentary that you give us when it definitely comes down to our Bulls, our beloved Bulls. So back in the day, you played with MJ. He averaged 31 points per game. So I'm wondering, tell me an MJ story that shows his intensity. And right now, if MJ was playing on the Oklahoma City Thunder, how you think he would come out to rally the troops, and how you think he would come out and play this game tonight, knowing that it's game 2, which is, to me, this is a must-win for OKC. Yeah. You go down 3-1, like I said, 81% of the time, the team that wins game 3 wins the series. So this, to me, is a must-win game because you still got to go to OKC. You may get that one, but then you still got to come back to Indiana.
So let's talk about one thing first. So I remember when, the documentary came out during COVID, right? And and I like to talk about this because people, current players at the time were like, oh, I'd never allow MJ to talk to me like that. I'm not going to that guy affect me like that. Okay.
Yeah, right.
That may be the case, but guess what team you won't be on? Guess what you won't be doing? Winning championships. Now, I mean, listen, I understand what some of these guys are saying, but that's what it was. MJ led, but he was a very, I don't want to say controversial leader, but he was, I mean, he was very truthful. He was very direct. And he basically said, you can either jump on the bus and join me, or you can get left behind. Right? And he led by example first and foremost, because everybody wants to make a big deal out of the Iverson thing. We're talking about practice. That whole thing was taken out of context. But the one thing MJ did not do was sit out of practice. And that's one of the things that made our team so good was how difficult and how competitive our practices were. Everybody knows about it's not even a fight. The punch that I took, the one that Steve Kerr took. We had physical confrontations all the time. Whether it's, between Horace and somebody or Scotty and somebody. I mean, guys have egos. But the one thing we were able to do is when we crossed that line, we played for and with each other, regardless of our personal beefs amongst each other. But the one thing that MJ did a great job is letting people know, and this is where Phil came in, is he had to really work on Michael was not a guy that said, hey, man, I love you. I care about you. I need you. He did it a different way about how he made you a teammate, invited you into the inner circle, accepted you for what you are and what you could do. But there was a lot of work that went into what Phil Jackson was doing to, convincing Michael that until you trust your teammates, you will not win a championship. So then until you win a championship, there will always be those rumors. Hasn't won a championship. Does he really make his teammates better? Is he just concerned about the scoring title and winning MVP? Yada, yada, yada. But now, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Best player of all time. To me, no discussion. I mean, I know you can make your different points. And I think that, you can have a discussion. I think the discussion should be, instead of is Michael or LeBron the greatest player, the question is that who's the second greatest player? Is it Kobe or LeBron? I would go with LeBron, but I don't understand why, it's so disrespectful to say you're the only player better than you is Michael Jordan. But I think that, in relation to what this OKC thing is, I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's done an excellent job of taking a page out of Michael Jordan's playbook. He's scoring the points. As I mentioned, maybe a little too much isolation at time. But what I love is how he communicates with his teammates during timeouts, dead ball situations, at the free throw line. And I also, knowing some of those people within the Oklahoma City organization, I know how accountable he is for his actions. And he'll be the first one to criticize himself before he criticizes everybody else. The thing about this Oklahoma City team is that they have to know and remember what their identity is. Sometimes you get caught up in, being a little too macho or letting your ego get in the way and be like, okay, we want to prove to you we can beat you your way. No, make them force you to play your game, and then that way you'll have the upper hand. I think we'll see that tonight. I think OKC will win. But I still think this thing could possibly go 7 games because it's just constantly going back and forth.
I appreciate you.
Go ahead, Cam.
Yeah. Good to have you, Will.
Is that a Michigan shirt?
Oh yeah, it's great to be a Wolverine.
Everybody makes mistakes. That's okay. I guess the one thing you can say is that in their last meeting they did beat Ohio State, correct?
Oh yes, without a quarterback.
Now the fact it's Where's that kid starting at this upcoming year?
Who that? Will Howard? Who drafted Will Howard?
He sat last year, but
I think Pittsburgh drafted him, didn't they?
No, it's because Rodgers is going to end up starting there. I forgot. I'm getting it confused. But the kid that was the quarterback that took him to the national championship.
Oh, you talking about JJ? Talking about Michigan? Oh yeah, JJ. Yeah, Minnesota.
He's going to be the starter for Minnesota.
Yeah. Hey, God, I hope you win every game except for when it's against the Bears.
That's a valid point right there.
Oh no, that means that they did well in the division. I want them to lose every game so the Bears have a better chance. What are you talking about? Like, work with me, baby. We got to get this. We got to get over this.
Yeah. I said I hope. Now I know it's not going to happen.
You're a Chicago guy. JJ's a local product.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
All right, what you got, Cameron?
All right, so I'm kind of going to go off script as well. I heard you talk about just winning the championships and things like that and playing for the two different teams, two different coaches. So I imagine I'm a new coach, new head coach, and I'm big on culture, and I'm trying to establish a great culture where I'm at. And I would imagine that since you played with the Bulls, played with MJ, played under Phil, and then you also played with the Spurs under Pop, I'm imagining, even though you won two different championships with two different teams, imagine there's two different types of culture. So do you mind like sharing like what type of cultures did you experience with the Bulls in Chicago, and what type of culture did you experience with San Antonio with Pop?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you hit it on the head. There were two very different types of approaches, right? The culture was the same as far as discipline and winning, right? The goal, win championships.
Yeah,
no less, right? Anything less was considered a failure. But it was, the Bulls took a very business-like approach, meaning you were here for one reason, that is to win championships, right?
Yeah.
Not only does Phil need to figure out how to fit you into the system to help the team win, but you need to figure it out as well. Phil, he liked to push guys' buttons, right? Thus to get the best out of somebody. Basically aggravate you, right? Get you pissed off. Then you go out there and you try to prove something to him. But while you're proving something to him, you're actually helping the team win. So even though Phil got the upper hand, he was more than willing to allow you to think that you as a player had the upper hand because you showed him what you can do, when that's what he was trying to get you to that particular level. So it's kind of like a little bit, like a magician, look at my left hand, my right hand takes your wallet type thing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas San Antonio was a true family approach, right?
Yeah.
You didn't want to lose in Chicago because you wanted to prove something to Phil, because you always felt like that maybe you weren't getting the credit you deserved from Phil, right? Whereas Pop was more like a father figure. You had the culture. You definitely had the discipline because of his military background.
Mm-hmm.
But you also had that, you felt like you were being supported by Pop. You also felt like Pop looked at you as a person first and a basketball player second, right? I'm not saying that Phil, didn't care about you as a person, but you were a basketball player first in Chicago and a person second, right? Yeah, you had feelings and you had emotions, but you were, that was kind of like old school. Put your emotions aside, put your feelings aside, step up, be a man, play basketball, and win games. San Antonio, the culture was, we abide by specific rules. We play at a certain level. You have respect for your teammates. You have the discipline that when you come through that door for practice and games, the team comes first. But at the same time, Pop had players over to his house for dinners. Sometimes it's in a group, sometimes it's individual. You go to dinners together on the road. Phil felt like there was a division between the players and the coach, and that's okay, right? But Pop felt like that we're going to run this organization like a family, but much like a family, you have expectations to pick up your brother, pick up your sister, because not everybody can play at their best every single night. And when you notice that your brother is not playing at their best, it's your responsibility to step up and pick them up, because they picked you up many times. So, it's you could take the family atmosphere, but also anybody that comes from a family. I'm an only child, and my wife comes from a big family. You know how competitive families are.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
That's also where with that family atmosphere, you got to the point where you didn't want to let Pop down and you didn't want to let your teammates down. And that was just a different approach, which I actually, really flourished in, more so than in Chicago. I learned how to adapt in Chicago. But my coach at Vanderbilt, C.M. Newton, was more like Greg Popovich than he was, Phil Jackson. And the reason why I brought that up is we can talk about student athletes all you want, but, you pick a college because of who the coach is and the basketball team is. The school is second. Is second to basketball, regardless of however the NCAA wants to sell it, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that my personality and everything fit C.M. Newton more so than Bobby Crimmins at Georgia Tech and Gene Cady at Purdue and, Norm Stewart at Florida. That seemed like it was a better fit with CM. And, luckily I got that right.
Nice. You know what? You mentioned something. I'm sorry, Cam. Go ahead.
No, you go. I'll follow up behind you.
You mentioned culture, the different cultures and it being so different. But the one thing you said is the culture was the same, pretty much accountability, a winning culture, basically, right? That you knew what you needed to do and how to show. Is that what's missing today for the Chicago Bulls? Like, honestly, like when you look at the Chicago Bulls and, the coaching, I don't want to say anything disparaging about Billy Donovan's per se, but like when you look at how we faltered, how we've kind of always come short, we're kind of always like the 8th to 10th seed. Are we missing that culture? And is on the flip side, is it also a development thing? Do we even have the right pieces so we can have this culture to turn it around?
Listen, Billy was brought here first and foremost to change the culture that had really hit rock bottom. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think he's done that. But the biggest issue right now is that, and some people are going to be like, man, he's saying the team has no talent. That's not what I'm saying. This team has some really good individual talent, right? Mm-hmm. Coby White, Ayo Dosunmu. You can say whatever you want about Josh Giddey, but, Giddey stepped up the last half of the season.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Now, some people, and I may have mentioned it once or twice, be like, it's a contract year. It makes sense, right? But
you did say it.
It's a contract year.
But the one thing is that it's kind of like we talked about with what Phil succeeded at is putting the pieces of the puzzle together, Tetris, right? Same thing, with Pop. What Billy has been tasked to do, in my opinion, is put together a bunch of pieces that just don't fit, right? Mm-hmm. And a perfect example is look at Sacramento, who basically took, DeMar, who's going to be a Hall of Famer and deserves to be a Hall of Famer, and Zach LaVine, who's an all-star. But let's be honest, just,
it don't fit.
48 minutes don't fit well together. Mm-hmm. They, throughout the 3 years they were together, they could fit together for a 4 or 5 game stretch, 20 minutes here, 14 minutes there. You know what I mean? But when it came to 82 games, it didn't work. It's just the amount of talent we had. But as you pointed out, I understand that everybody wants to go back to, Lonzo's first year and at the All-Star break, we were in first place and all that stuff. But Lonzo had a lot to do with that. He was kind of like the glue. He was the guy, the head of the snake, the guy that kind of kept everybody in line. And the minute he got hurt, the team just fell apart. Yeah. And from that point forward, I thought it lacked a lot of, leadership. But now the team's going in a different direction. They've handed the reins over to Coby, and that's kind of scary. And I don't mean because Coby can't handle it, but will Coby re-sign? Right? He's an impending free agent. So could the guy you're kind of handing the reins over to and Coby, will they re-sign Josh Giddey? I feel like they absolutely will re-sign Josh Giddey. But at the end of the day, there's really only one other team that can sign Josh Giddey, and that's Brooklyn. And to my understanding is Brooklyn has no interest. So this is where you learn about the business aspect. Usually you're talking about players learn this is a business. Are the Bulls willing to make a rigid stand knowing that nobody else can really bid for, his services? So do they lowball? Or do they just step up and say, okay, we'll give you 5 years at 30 mil because that's the right thing to do? On one hand, yeah, that's the right thing to do. But on the other hand, now you kind of locked yourself and you put yourself closer to, the tax threshold. There's nobody else that can bid on them. I think you owe it to the organization, and I don't necessarily say the fans, but you owe it to yourself to give yourself as much flexibility as possible. So that's how you negotiate. That's what this whole stuff is supposed to be about. What's going to be the final price, for Josh Giddey? And then where's this Iota Sumo in the future? It's just they have some good pieces, right? When you look at this team on paper, you can say good piece, good piece, good piece, good piece. But what they really haven't been able to do is ultimately put all those pieces together for an extended period of time to where this team plays really good basketball, right? I know they'll try to say, what was it towards the end? Was it 15-4 or what was the last, what they made that run towards the end of the year? They played well together, but then we all know and saw what happened in the play-in game.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I think, a lot rides on this draft, and I know they have the 12th pick, but they can't whiff on this draft. They got to be able to get talent. They got to have some, find somebody that can play, not necessarily right away, but somebody talked about, that's got to be able to grow with this team. It's got to be able to develop. And it'll be interesting to see how these guys develop now that Peter Patton's no longer with the organization.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate that, Will. Thanks so much. Listen, I know that you are short on time. You're about to go, so we appreciate that. Was there anything else from Foul Mouth or Cameron that you all wanted to jump in and ask real quick before we let Will go?
Well, one thing I'll tell you is that, I know you say you're talking about you want to develop a specific culture, right? A lot of people throw that word around. Culture comes discipline, accountability. And that's going to be, I've experienced with my friends that are coaches at that level, is finding a group of kids that are willing to take a step back and truly look in the mirror and hold themselves accountable. That all the time. It's difficult. And that's the thing we're going to learn is that, sometimes you got to take a step backwards in order to put your team together and not necessarily take the best 10 players, but take the best 10 guys you think will play well together and make the team the best. And that's going to be difficult because then you might have to explain to somebody's parents, why somebody didn't make the team or why somebody's not playing. Because that's the other issue you're going to find. I think you probably been dealing with it is that there's plenty of people out there telling all the kids how great they are, when in truth they may not be that good at all.
Yeah. Thank you, Will.
You got it.
I got a question. Why do you think? Like me, I just say what's coming off the top of my mind. It doesn't matter to me. Why do you think that AK and Billy Donovan still have a job when you've seen other coaches around the league and other front office personnel get fired after having winning seasons, going to the playoffs, winning coaches of the year? And here it is, Billy Donovan has only had, I don't know how many seasons he's been with the Bulls, 5, 6 seasons, something like that. And he's only had one winning season. And the rest have been very mediocre to poor. And as far as when it comes down to Arturas Karnisovas, I think I pronounced his name correctly.
Yeah.
His drafting from him signing guys has been I mean, it's been terrible. I mean, here it is. A lot of fans thought we were bad when we had guard packs, and now with Acme, it's just gotten even worse. So, in your personal opinion, why do you think that those two guys still have a
The one
job?
thing about Gar and Pax, we can all agree that they drafted really, really well, right? To go through now, granted, they mistakes. Think of all the players that they drafted, right? And I'm talking about just take Derrick Rose out of the equation. You know, from Taj Gibson, Heinrich to it's kind of interesting. We've been very fortunate to play on those 3 championship teams with that team, you know, with Derek, with Joe, and with Heinrich. When you talk to the fans in general, that team is probably almost as popular as the 90s teams because of how, you know, the fans could really relate to that group. Now, they never won a championship. They never won a conference finals, but just how they played and, you know, the way the city supported them is impressive, right? But one thing you got to be able to do is if you want a coach to truly succeed, you got to set them up for success. You got to give them the right players in order to do that. The one thing I've talked about is that I just, you know, even though on paper we had some good individual pieces, it's just I didn't think those pieces necessarily fit well together. I thought you were trying to take a square block and, you know, shove it into a round hole. So at some point you can say that, you know, Billy had some limitations because of what he was trying to do. And at times I thought did a really good job. And other times I think that, you know, he's failed. But the one thing I like about Billy is he, you know, if he thinks he made a mistake, he steps up and says it. He admits it. He takes accountability, right? You make a good question. I think they now sit behind Pat Riley, Spoelstra, the Bulls, Billy Donovan and AK have the 3rd longest relationship in the NBA as far as, you know, head coach GM or head coach president. That's pretty surprising, you know?
Very.
I don't know what goes on behind the scenes because they're very private there. I don't know if they've lowered their expectations. I hope not, because, you know, I know one of the things they get mad at me about is that because of the fact that there's 6 banners hanging in the United Center and also over at the practice facility, they should hold themselves to higher standards than most teams, right? Because I think even former players, we want to see this organization get back to being prominent, being back to be a contender, not a pretender. And at what point does ownership feel like, okay, this has run its course, it's time for a change? So that's why I talk about, I think this draft is huge. They got a 1st-round pick and a 2nd-round pick. They got to hit 2 home runs, right? Players got to be able to hit the ground running and not necessarily be impactful in the sense that they're starters. But as you guys have talked about, you know, you mentioned it, PKIDD, about development, you know, Foulmouth, you're talking about, you know, how much longer will AK and Billy be here? I think this season will tell us a lot because, you know, if I know they've talked about taking a step backwards and, you know, they don't like to use the word rebuilding, but, you know, they got to get this thing turned around and they got to do it quickly. Now the question is AK and Billy, are they the right combination to get that done? And I think we're about to find that out because I think that, you know, it's a lot of people have strong opinions on that. I can honestly tell you I flip-flop. I've been back and forth, you know. I personally like Billy as a person. I enjoy talking with him. I think he's very knowledgeable as a coach. You know, is he given the right tools in order to truly succeed? And I think that's where, you know, this is where he's really going to have to step up his coaching acumen and development moving forward and quickly.
Will, thank you so much for joining the show, man. We appreciate you. Have a good night, brother.
All right. I enjoy it. And I'm curious. I know we fans here, but I just want to hear everybody. PKIDD, who you got tonight?
PKIDD is off the script, man. He had to go.
He wanted to go see the game. Foul, who you got?
Tonight, I'm going to go with the underdog. I'm going to ride with Team Light Skin one more time. Indiana.
I wonder why, Foul. I wonder why.
All right. Hey, man, Curry did it. Might as well Halliburton take over. Team Light Skin.
Right, the odds have changed. Indiana's now the favorite in Vegas.
Whoa.
So, who you got?
Amazing what one game would do, huh?
Yeah. Hey, I'm going Thunder. Thunder in 7.
Yep.
Thunder in 7.
I agree with you. I'm on that train right there. So you guys enjoy yourself. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Thank you,
and hopefully we'll talk again in the future.
Sound good. Thanks, you too, Will.
All right, guys.
Yes, thank you, Will. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for showing up and showing out, man. I was excited to have Will Perdue on, and I was, he was really excited about this championship tonight. He's like, hey, can we push it? Can we move it forward a little? Can we move it forward a little? I was like, absolutely. What would you like? What would you like, Will? So I tell you what, I got to ask you guys a question. Let's start off with this segment. And Foul C, you're the king of real talk on Chicago Clubhouse. What's your next big take, and how do you keep it raw for the fans, man?
Actually, I'll go with no filter. I mean, it's like barbershop talk when you come on to the Chicago Clubhouse podcast. We get into it with each other, disagreements. I have no problem with voicing my take or my opinions against, the status quo. Like we've gone and had Warren Sapp on the show. Me and Warren Sapp just literally went at it, and he's a Hall of Famer. He has on the yellow jacket, and I'm just a fan, a guy that played the sport. And just because you may be a Hall of Famer doesn't mean necessarily that you know everything about the game, how it goes.
Even if you do, it don't transfer over to what you think.
I mean, the GOAT, the greatest player of all time, was terrible as a GM, wasn't a great owner. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have been a very good head coach. Sometimes the best players are the worst front office and coaches, what I'm saying, ever. So when I just keep it 100, I just try to come at you and talk as authentic as I can and come at it from my perspective, but also willing and open to hear things from other people's perspective as well. So it doesn't. I'm unfiltered.
I love it. And honestly, I'm not really happy with the hoodie you're wearing, but that's all right. So
why is everybody taking a shot at Michigan? What's going on, baby? I mean, the largest alumni in the United States.
The only guy that I can rep right now is Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant in the building. Come on, man. Local.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Kenneth Grant. I'm sorry. Kenneth Grant. Yes, sir. Big DT.
Yes, DT. But hey, he can track.
Yes,
go look back. He can track.
Oh, yeah.
He's not hey, I'm a big guy. Yeah. This is my assignment. This is all I got. Yeah. No, you better worry about him pulling you back and slamming you down. Because
I actually wanted the best to draft.
Yeah, I did too.
I wanted the best to go back and draft. I wanted them to trade back and get him.
What do you and I know?
He was number one on my board.
What do you and I know?
I mean, they still got a Michigan guy.
Yeah.
Still got him. The best tight end. The best tight end in the draft.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're tracking with for sure. Yeah, I can't complain about that whatsoever. That's like a Jim Miller, Tom Brady comparison. You know what I'm saying? But Cameron, you're taking the reins of Griffith after a 12-15 season. You've got to rebound for a turnaround, man. What's your game plan, and how are the stats shaping it, man?
Oh, man, I think Foulmouth said it best. He talked about, MJ, basically being kind of a bad GM, and assumingly we could believe that he'd probably be a bad head coach if he was a coach. But I would just say staying a student to the game. I mean, we've always heard that coming up, man. Always stay a student to the game, no matter how many championships you win, no matter how much time you put into the game, how many years you put on your body. You got to stay a student to the game. When we talked to Will earlier, that's one of my big words that I always use and always try to implement. I'm trying to implement now a good culture, making sure that we establish a great culture there. And I wanted to know Will's perspective on the coaches winning 2 different championships with 2 different teams. So obviously just establishing a great culture, staying a student to the game. I believe everything else will, take care of itself.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to see what you got, see what's going to happen to Griffith. But, hey, Bulls friends, that is a wrap. We just went all in with Will Perdue and this killer crew, man. I'll tell you what, history, stats in Chicago, fire from start, from finish. Huge thanks to Will, Foulmouth C, and Cameron bringing the heat, man. This is Bulls on Tracks. We're live, we're loud, and we're back next time. I'll tell you what, we got somebody bigger and better coming on, man, on Facebook's, YouTube, and X. See you soon, man. Love you guys.
Peace out.